Hey, this is Jeff Disher of OpenAutonomy. I'm just going to give a quick run through of sort of the use cases that I personally use with my own installation of OpenAutonomy. Now, as you can see, this is actually not on the main OpenAutonomy server. It's a personal one I have, which I've been using for testing some of this over the past several months. But of course, some of these actually do link through to the main server, where, for example, this is actually OpenAutonomy.com. So, first of all, you'll see that I've actually got this large trusted user list. For the most part, these are actually syndicated RSS feeds. So the primary use I have for OpenAutonomy in my day-to-day use is actually using it like an RSS reader. So looking at that, for example, it's just going to load in all these there. This most of what's actually showing up in my social feed is things that are from the RSS feeds that I'm watching, things like Slashdot and the CBC, things like that. So I'm using those. Now, of interest, of course, these are actually the instances that are sitting on OpenAutonomy.com. So they're actually, I'm not using syndicated feeds on my own server. I'm using them, the shared ones, on the main server. So any comments you make on items there will actually show up in my feed personally on a different server, which is kind of interesting. Beyond that, there's some things that are kind of interesting about the setup I've got here. One of the things that I always wanted with OpenAutonomy and why it's a core part of the system is that you're not actually limited to all your applications being on one server. And here's an example of why. This is a server I've got in my home. So it's fast for me because it's 100 megabits directly connected to my main desktop, so it's really convenient. However, it doesn't connect very well to the outside world, and also I need something that's off-site in case there's some sort of a fire or theft or something like that here. So I needed a location where I could store information off-site. So as you can see, I've actually created a storage application on a different server. So I'm not logged in here right now, so I can't see this. But just to give you an example of the workflow, I'll do the remote login. Alright, so this actually shows up as my various backups, some public files that I need fast access to, things like photos that I'm sharing because I don't want them served off my personal home line because that's going to be really slow. But basically, these are used. I use this off-site location because of things like anytime I'm concerned about I need some data that I'm going to back up somewhere else, so I'm not worried about having all my eggs in one basket, so to speak, at home, but also in case I need some fast hosting somewhere of files. And now you'll also see my messaging system actually has 19 messages in it. And no, that's not because I'm using it very aggressively as a messaging system, which is possible to do with it, but there aren't that many users that use it, so it wouldn't actually go up to that number that quickly. The reason is I've actually got some of these native applications, so the ones here that are in bold. So you can see this is actually one where it's telling me that it's uploaded a file sometime at 4 a.m. this morning. This is actually when it does some off-site backups, because you can see that's the same time this one updated how much space it has. So what happens there is at that time it actually sends me an email describing what it ended up doing. So that all sits in my messaging system. Other things that I end up using this for, because that uploader system is actually how the OpenAutonomy source code gets backed up every night. So it's encrypted and backed up, all running directly in some shell scripts and some Java code on the server, which connects up to OpenAutonomy and actually uses this. So this actually does a trusted connection to a remote file server and stores things there in a trusted fashion using the OpenAutonomy system altogether. But I've also got other things here like my personal weblog on LiveJournal, my personal YouTube account, this YouTube account on YouTube. These are set up as RSS feeds. So for example, if I open this, it'll actually show the information about where these are being pulled from and what things have shown up in the feed. So when I make a new item, that actually what happens is the RSS feed will actually put that into my social feed as though I had posted a new social item. That way anyone who's watching me, not only do they see social items I upload or create, but also anything that happens in any of my RSS feeds. So if I make a blog post, that shows up there too. If I make a YouTube entry, that shows up there too. So these all end up being aggregated together, all because of the various components of OpenAutonomy. And again, these components will all be open sourced. The last thing I wanted to mention is I've got some additional native apps here, the other ones in bold, and these are actually how the OpenAutonomy synchronization system accesses my identity. So it's because I've got two of them, one for private files and one for public files, and so those actually get synchronized between my main desktop system. Sometimes they also get synchronized to one of my work systems, and also to the offsite backup at openautonomy.com. So all of these things are always going through the whole system, and from end to end it's all trusted and works that way. So that's generally how I use this system, and it's part of why all these components that are built into it were things which I directly needed to see in it from the get-go, because I found specific use cases where all these things seem to be required. So now they are. This addresses all the needs that I'd originally thought, wouldn't it be great if there was a service that could actually do all of these things. And of course, this is on a condensed screen just to make the encoding more obvious. You're not looking at tiny text in the YouTube video, but it also does work if this is scaled down to like a phone size, for example, which is great because I'm logged in on my phone all the time, and it just works from there too. So anyway, this is my quick example of how I use the system. I'm interested in what other people end up doing with it, and also what kind of problems they find with it or suggestions, because a lot of this stuff is still fairly new and there's some rough edges. So send me an email at jeff.disher@openautonomy.com if you want an invite to use the system, because the public market trial is now open, and once you've been using the system, you start getting invites as well that you can use to invite other users. So we're going to grow it that way to begin with. And throughout the market trial, I will be doing the open source release as well. So anyway, let me know what you think, and see you as this moves forward. Thanks.